Today we'll be taking a look at Terrifier 3, Damien Leone's third movie about respecting women. But a quick word of warning before this video starts, this episode is going to be about as pixelated as one of those Japanese internet videos, due to YouTube not really liking it when people's insides are displayed on their outsides. So with that being said, the uncensored version will be available for YouTube members and patrons, as well as the extra perk of instantly becoming more handsome or beautiful when you sign up to become one. Terrifier 3 follows our favourite children's entertainer, Art the Clown, as we join him once again for another exciting lesson in human anatomy. This wholesome Christmas movie begins a few nights before Christmas as a family is sound asleep awaiting the big day. The young daughter wakes up after hearing the sound of someone on the roof, as apparently Santa has taken the wrong dosage of his medication and has gotten his days mixed up. The mother assures her that it's nothing to worry about and probably just the poltergeist in the attic again, before heading downstairs to notice the front door open, which she proceeds to blame her husband for due to his uncanny ability to continuously forget about using door handles. After hearing more footsteps, the little girl gets out of bed once again and goes downstairs excited to see Santa. Santa, who appears to have been hitting the cardio hard this year, or the fentanyl, and she watches as he reaches into his sack to retrieve his special Christmas axe. He then heads upstairs to deliver his gifts, but not the gift of spreading joy, but the gift of spreading entrails, as after heading into her brother's room, that's exactly what he does. Once he's done spreading his Christmas joy to this little boy, he then heads into the parents' room when they're sleeping to put the father into a permanent sleep. The mother eventually wakes up to the continuous thudding sound of an axe meeting her husband's inside parts, before turning the light on to reveal a slightly anemic looking Santa Claus. A Santa Claus who proceeds to mock her terrified screams before watching as she discovers the state that her son left his bedroom in. After doing his best Jack Nicholson impression, except a little bit more pale, he manages to get her with the axe before channeling his inner barber and taking a little bit off the top in the form of a skin fade. After a long, stressful night of reducing the world's overpopulation crisis, he helps himself to a nice refreshing glass of milk and a cookie before hearing a noise in the cupboard. Either my cupboard demons have come back to haunt me again, or there's a little girl hiding in there. After he opens the cupboard, it then cuts to 5 years prior, after Art's done with his cutting, as we see the events behind the ending of the previous movie, the rather smartly titled Terrifier 2. His headless body was discovered by a police officer, before his said headless body proceeded to take the head from the police officer and wear it for himself. I'm pretty sure that's blackface. Using his dashing new looks, Art makes his way to the asylum, where Victoria from the original movie is housed. A security guard then comes across Victoria and Art's severed head, feeding on someone's remains. But Art, being the friendly gentleman that he is, kindly relieves the security guard of his face skin. With his head now firmly reattached and his belly full, Art and Victoria get on the subway, where someone else dressed as Art the Clown, looking a little more like how Art did in All Hallows Eve, before it then cuts to Art and Victoria outside of an abandoned secluded house, with the horn from that guy's costume. It was basically stolen valor. After having a little look around, Victoria headbutts the mirror due to her extreme phobia of reflections, and gets into a nice relaxing bath, where she proceeds to use a shard of broken glass to press the off switch. And while she's filling the bath up with her new iron-scented bath bomb, Art casually sits in a rocking chair in the window while he rocks back and forth, because rocking is fun. Skipping ahead back to the present day, with Art spreading the joy of Christmas, Old Testament style, we see as a man named Greg comes to pick up his niece Sienna from a wellness and recovery center, or as I like to refer to as, the fun place. Sienna is going to be living with her Aunt Jess, Uncle Greg and niece Gabby due to her parents being absent, in that they're dead. Cutting back to the old abandoned building that Art and his new roommate have been staying in, a demolition crew arrives because Art's behind on his rent. The pair split up into not a pair, with one of them heading upstairs and the other downstairs. Upstairs, the man finds Art sitting in that rocking chair covered in cobwebs, where he's been patiently waiting for the last 5 years for another opportunity to quite literally walk into his hands. The other man finds the severely decomposed body of Victoria in the bathroom in the form of Victoria's soup, before the pair proceed to spring to life, with Victoria getting the world's most drawn out double kill while using the shard of glass, and Art using the tried and true method of taking the man's Stanley knife and entirely degloving his face with it. Oh yeah, Victoria's getting freaky with the shard of glass in the corner while making a bit of a mess. And if it hasn't already become apparently obvious, this movie is very much trying to shock and offend, most notable due to its treatment of Demolition employees. Back with Sienna and her family, we learn that she's been suffering with hallucinations since the events of the previous movie, and hallucinates her friend Brooke sitting across from her after she was very much written out of the script by Art in Terrifier 2. Brooke, Sienna's hallucination, blames Sienna for what happened to her, which is basically just Sienna blaming herself for what happened to her. Brooke proceeds to scream and shout at her while asking for her to pass the rice. But I don't think you'll fix that one by putting it in rice. After being reintroduced to Sienna and her imaginary friend, we're reintroduced to Jonathan, who's moved away and is now at college, where he proceeds to walk in on his roommate Cole, checking if this girl Mia has still got her tonsils or not. Mia runs a true crime podcast and would like Jonathan to come on it to talk about the horrible things that have happened to him, but he refuses on account of not wanting to spoil the second movie. We then see how Art managed to acquire his Santa costume from the beginning of the movie, as while walking past a bar, he spots a mall Santa inside before running in super excited to meet his hero, a fat man who breaks into the home of children. While sitting on Santa's lap, Art takes a shot that Santa buys for him before spitting it back in his face due to not liking the taste, before turning towards Santa and proceeding to urinate on him. Despite having something done to him that some people would pay money to have done, Santa proceeds to get extremely irate due to the nice warm sensation suddenly going uncomfortably cold, and the bartender goes to kick Art out. This is until Art pulls out a firearm and swiftly deals with the bartender and another patron, leaving him alone with his idol. After removing the Santa outfit from the man and wearing it himself to acquire the drip, he ties him to a chair before pulling out a canister of liquid nitrogen. The man begins to beg him, listing off the names of all of his grandchildren, before Art, being disgusted at the thought of children, uses the liquid nitrogen to freeze the man's various body parts, before taking a hammer to the frozen appendages, like me trying to separate the frozen burgers. With no way for Santa to control his sleigh anymore, Art proceeds to spray the man directly in the face, before doing a little remodeling with the hammer and tearing off his beard for himself, because every Santa needs a beard. Reminiscing about the fun days of losing her mother and being chased by a psychotic mime who also happens to be a clown, Sienna reads an old note from Jonathan, explaining that they need to destroy the little girl because she's a demon. And I can in fact confirm that little girls are in fact demons. Talking about the evil girl from the previous movie, I assume, the note states that demons need to inhabit the vessel of a recently deceased person, but not just any type of person, it has to be the worst kind of person. So someone who watches Asmongold. Since Sienna is no longer in the fun place now and has the freedom to do whatever she wants, she takes Gabby to the mall to do some Christmas shopping, but starts to have an auditory hallucination due to those places being incredibly overstimulating. But while she's hearing things that aren't really happening, she sees who she thinks is Art the Clown wearing a Santa costume and a Santa mask, which brings a tear to her eye due to her overwhelming love for Christmas. Just like me after that time I got hit really hard on the head, not sure if what she just witnessed was real or not, just like that weird lump I have, she proceeds to ignore it and goes on about her day and meets up with Jonathan. But after Cole and Mia arrive, Sienna loses her temper after Mia begins to fangirl over her, with it being apparent that she has no care or respect for the horrific things that Sienna has endured, and instead wants to use her for her own podcast's benefit, because all the girlies be doing podcasts these days. My favourite girly podcast is Rojogan. She tells Jonathan that she thinks she saw Art the Clown today, but he doesn't believe her on account of Sienna making him a few inches shorter at the end of the previous movie, and the fact that he's trying to put all of this behind him. But channeling her inner crackhead energy, she tells him that she believes she's the one who needs to rid the world of this demon by using the magical sword from the end of the previous movie, because oh yeah, there was a magical sword in the previous movie. Art, never one to not have a good time, wearing the mask that Sienna saw him wearing earlier, is still at the mall, and spots an opportunity after the local mall Santa has left for his methamphetamine break. Taking his place, all of the kids come running over to him as he starts to hand out toys. Security see the skinny looking white dude a little too close to the kids and kick him out, when suddenly one of the kids unwraps his present, causing it to explode as a nice and easy way to knock a few off the naughty list. And of course, Art thinks it's the best thing since sliced bread. Sliced children. Wanting to blow off some steam, Art randomly invites himself to a college party, something which doesn't really make that much sense, but then again, When has anything in this movie made sense? He walks past a room with Mia and Cole in it as they're talking about Jonathan, catching Art's attention due to his known interest in all people named Jonathan. Mia is talking about how she really wants to interview him, due to wanting nothing more than to know what it was like to be that close to that kind of evil. After coming home from retrieving the magical sword from the previous movie, Sienna hides it by wrapping it as a gift and putting it behind the tree, where she then learns about the explosion at the mall earlier today, thanks to an interview with special effects legend Tom Savini, as he talks about what he witnessed. Sienna starts to panic due to Art's signature move of blowing up molds, and she calls Jonathan to tell him that Art's back, where luckily he was too busy having a temper tantrum instead of going to that college party. He agrees to come and see Sienna, with Greg leaving to go and get him, as we then catch up with Art, as he's outside of the stall, as Mia and Cole are showering together. You know, for those hard-to-reach places. Pulling out a chainsaw from his never-ending bag of goodies, like a schizophrenic Mary Poppins, he relieves Cole of his leg before giving Mia a non-consensual breast reduction surgery. After giving her exactly what she wanted, which is to know what it was like to be in the presence of such evil, he gets curious for what she had for dinner earlier, so decides to take a look for himself. After Mia is no longer here, she's a little bit of everywhere really now, he turns his attention to Cole before performing a circumcision, except wrong. After taking Cole and making him plural, Art proceeds to lay in the pool of blood to make some blood angels. How wholesome. After taking some sleeping pills and dreaming about the time her father drew her as a superhero with a magical sword, the superhero costume that she wore in the previous movie with the magical sword she used to defeat Art, she wakes up to the sound of her aunt and uncle talking about smothering her in her sleep. But when she walks downstairs, she sees Victoria dressed as Art, with Art also dressed as Art, while he's showing his love for Jesus by reenacting a crucifixion with someone who unfortunately appears to be missing their head as well as their internal organs. Sienna's knocked unconscious by Art and wakes up restrained and gagged, with her Aunt Jess also restrained in front of her. It appears the unlucky fellow on the wall is Greg, doing his best Jesus impression, as Art decorates the tree using his entrails. Jess asks where her daughter Gabby is, so Art unwraps a present in the middle of the room to reveal a skull whose flesh is being feasted on by rats. Taking the rats, Art then forces a tube into Jess's mouth and hammers it in, before Victoria slides the rat into the tubes one by one. But not being one to let animals needlessly suffer, Victoria is kind enough to cut them free. Taking a crown of thorns, Victoria places it on Sienna's head, because she's basically Jesus if you think about it, before revealing that Gabby is still in fact alive. After showing Gabby the makeover that she just gave her mother, Victoria reveals to Sienna that the skull actually belongs to Jonathan. Well, belonged. Jonathan, who received very little screen time this time around, and who played a very little part in the story overall, to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if that actually wasn't him at all, and he makes a reappearance in a later movie, because due to the success of this entry, there will be another movie. The demon that's now using Victoria as a vessel wants to wear Sienna down enough, to the point that she can inhabit her body, but due to Sienna being a strong, independent woman who don't need no demon inside of her, she fights back. So, knowing that Gabby is the only thing that Sienna has left, Victoria plans to use her to make Sienna break. But Gabby asks if Sienna could open her Christmas present from her first. And being the nice, loving people that Victoria and Art are, they allow Sienna to open it. Not before crushing her hands with a mallet. But even with her busted hands, she's able to open the present and use the sword to defeat Victoria, because she talks a lot of rubbish for someone who isn't sword-proof. Art attacks her with his chainsaw, but he forgets the golden rule of using a chainsaw. Don't use it against wood. The chainsaw gets stuck in a table, giving Sienna the opportunity to get in with the sword, before the blood coming from Victoria's body opens up a portal to hell, a little known side effect of woman blood, forcing Sienna to let go of Art to try and save Gabby, while holding onto the blade to try and pull her up. But severely lacking upper body strength, Gabby and the sword fall down the pit of hell, and Sienna turns to see Art gone. Her wounds from holding the blade then suddenly heal right before her very eyes, before she vows to find Gabby, as apparently she's unlocked the regenerating health cheat code. The movie then comes to its end, with Art casually boarding the bus while inconsiderately bleeding all over the place, before tooting his horn because he's just a goofy kind of guy. So before this video comes to an end, I'd like to just give a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and Patreon signups. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube member or Patreon sign up yourself, not only are you just generally being a great support to the channel, but you also get access to a few little perks, like being able to join the private Discord, where you can then get links to all uncensored versions of videos going forward. So starting off with this week's new YouTube signups, a massive thank you to Arcanum, Jackorian Willis, BB Prop Show, The Soldier 420, Die, Giant Mutant Ant, Dominico, Barker, Zaza Lord, Nvixinity, Gigashot, Marucci, Luke Finn, Layla, William, Dirktul, Erica Ramseur, KJ, Natalie Cybertips, Zane Munro, TVHT96, Gamer on Demand, The Lord of Stuff, Doomsday Adams, Mai, Fabrica Rua Sanchez, Rockboy the Boss, Fakiz, and Private Tekken. And now making our way over to this week's new Patreon signups, a massive thank you to Low Skill, Ryan Pratt, Jablade123, Dylan Rowland, Will, Mina Molloy, Rodo Smith, Rikari Sanders, Luke Strello, Chloe, Bjorn Hermans, Moss Hugs, Dan Urshan, Pranav Gopal, Hobo Zombie Killer, The Terrifier, Rain Smith, Link, Jennifer Myers, Nathan Cousins, Austin Steenmeyer, Noah Weldner, Teddy, Sliff, Lewis G, Biggest Enjoyer, Hermit Q Kun, Jacob Posey, Felix Lavassier, John, Kiara Hauserova, Michael Morgan, OYF, Dimitro K, Pickle Nick 7, Caitlin Murren, KINS3I, and Gerald. So once again, a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and patrons, and a big thank you to everyone else for watching.